Today on the ProLife Podcast, abortion is still a hot topic in culture. Also because it's election day, we're going to talk about both these things. Pull up a chair, grab your coffee. Let's get started. Happy Tuesday, ProLife family. Pull up your chair, get your coffee. There's a lot to discuss today. But first, let's go around the table, introduce. We have a guest today, too. So she walked in here and started asking questions about what we were talking about. And we're like, well, just sit down then. So Bailey Sunback is one of our donor development associates. Veronica Arnold-Smither, education associate. Emily Cook, general counsel, awesome lawyer. Brett Clearman, IT, head nerd, chief cook, and bottle washer. So, man, it was a weird week last week. So many things, and we're even kind of editing down what we've talked about. Let's start with the real hardcore shocker today. NPR aired the audio of an abortion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in Illinois, right?
Michigan.
An 11 weeks old baby.
Yes.
What do you mean they aired the audio?
Well, they aired the audio. It's about I think, what was it, 10-minute recording or something?
Yeah, that's what I'm
so you hear the crying and moaning from the mom and the vacuum and the...
Yeah, it's really, really shocking.
It is. So this
what
is
angle
from...
are they taking?
Well...
They wanted to show how quick and easy it is and that it's not a big deal. And this reporter got permission. Apparently, she's even worked with this specific mom before on other things. And so she got permission to record the abortion, and she was holding her hand through it. And the sounds are really triggering. And I was going through the comments on Instagram on other platforms that posted the audio, and they were like, careful when you watch this with the sound on or even off. Like, you can watch it without the sound and read the subtitles of everything that's going on. And some women were posting the comments like, I watched it with the sound off, just the subtitles were enough for me. And with the sound on, like, you can hear the vacuum come on. And it is very fast. It goes by very fast. But the woman is saying, I can't do this. And they're saying, you can do this, you can do this. And the reporter
She's
even
crying.
equates it. Yeah, and she's in a lot of pain. They said they were like, it might hurt a little, and
she was complaining about the cramps, saying the cramps were too painful. That's what it's, just reading.
Skimming the article, yeah.
Reading the article in Fox News about it. The reporter said they put a spotlight on the dim lighting and soothing music that the reporter claimed makes it feel a lot like a childbirth.
Yeah, except the baby is being vacuumed out.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it was really... I'm not usually very disturbed anymore when I hear about abortion stories because I've heard them so long. Like, it obviously is very wrong, and I always feel like a sense of justice about it, but I'm not usually disturbed by it anymore because I've just been around it so much, and you have to get used to it. Otherwise, you'd burn out and cry every day. Right. But this one, I was like, I can't. Like, I put the phone down and went and, like, meditated. It was really intense.
It says, within a couple of minutes, it's over. Wells, the reporter, told listeners as the woman moaned. The clinic staffer that was in there told the woman after she had been, said the staffer was consoling the distraught woman. And then at the end, you did it. The clinic staffer said, you did great. Isn't it? I mean, it's just, it's kind of, I mean, it's backfired. Like, why? It really actually shows what happens when you kill an unborn child. Yeah. And it just breaks your heart.
I think they wanted to make it seem like a normal visit to like a dentist or something, and it came across more of like listening to a 911 call. Yeah, these attempts to normalize this stuff are just
satanic.
Yeah.
Satanic.
Yeah.
I mean, they're literally normalizing murder and playing the recording on the internet for anyone to listen to on purpose.
Maybe it makes women change their minds.
I hope so.
I would think it would. I mean,
I sure hope so.
I mean, Anne Hathaway called abortion a mercy. If you want to read that article, it's on the website.
Yeah, that's two. I mean, two stark differences. Like, there's nothing about that recording and that experience that is merciful.
Mm-mm.
Right. I do wonder how a pro-choice person would react to that recording, if they would be like, if they would follow the narrative of NPR and like, yeah, it's quick and easy, it went by in 5 minutes, or if they would think, oh, this makes me really uncomfortable. Like maybe would that person now be reachable because they were disturbed by hearing it? That's what I hope. And then, of course, all the people who are already pro-life, like us, are utterly disturbed.
Right. Yeah, it's a recording of a child dying.
Yeah. I'm shocked that they did that. I feel like it should be the news. It needs like PG ratings and R ratings now. It's like you can't just watch the news anymore and feel like, yeah, my kids can be in the room with me right now. Like, no, they can't. Kids, get out of the room because this is R rated.
People were driving their kids around while this stuff is airing. What the heck, guys?
Right.
Well, speaking of awkward conversations, there was one on Love is Blind. This is not a show that I watch or am familiar with. And this is also what put Bailey in the chair here, because she walked in and asked what we were talking about today. And I mentioned, well, I want to talk about this article, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the show. Steve Sherman, also works in your department, mentioned that he and his wife watched the show, and there was this conversation about
how do y'all have time
abortion.
For these TV shows?
Anyways, right.
For the record, I am not proud that I watched this show. It's just
okay.
It's a train wreck you have to watch. It's just like
Netflix's kind of bachelorette sort of
I was going to say, is it like a bachelor show?
So the premise of the show is they take a group of men and women, and then they date and meet each other in these pods where they can't see each other. So it's like you can't make it to the next round of the show until you propose to somebody, and then you can see them.
That's
so like you date for essentially 10 days, and you can only talk. And so people do propose, and then they move on to the next phase, which is to go on like kind of a honeymoon type thing. And then they go back to real life and they live together. So it's like an experiment.
It's all very out of order.
Yes, it is all very
Let's get engaged, go on honeymoon, and then move in together. What?
Yes.
TV is weird.
But the pro-life part of it, or the abortion topic,
right,
that comes up in the show is during the pod phase when they're just talking to each other. There's a woman named Nancy, and she brings up to her soon-to-be fiance, she says, I've sold my eggs a few times. Is that going to be like a problem for you? Like, I have kids out there, essentially. I don't know how many. And he was like, no, that's not a problem. That's really interesting. And of course you're like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. You have children out there that you've never met. You don't even know how many. Like, wow. That's crazy. And then once they, spoiler alert, they do get engaged. And then when they're living together, she just brings up, we might have kids together one day. How do you feel about abortion? Like, what if we have a child that has a disability? Like, would you be okay with aborting? And he was like, no. And it caused this it caused a rift, essentially. And they revealed that his family's really pro-life. And they had like a meeting with his family, and like his sister started crying at the thought of like a hypothetical abortion for her, niece or nephew. And I went on Twitter just to see what people were saying, and people were like, this girl is just crying over a hypothetical abortion. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's not even, they're just talking about a subject. And I'm like,
an important subject to talk about before you get married.
Yeah. And her heart's in the right place. She should be emotional about these kinds of things.
I mean, I'm surprised they aired that.
Yeah, I was surprised too, but they didn't really show the content around it. And that's what was kind of interesting to me. I think that there were more conversations because as the show goes on, he's constantly referring back to the abortion conversation.
Really? So
and how it kept really bothering him. Yes. And I mean, it was just interesting to watch unfold because you could tell that she like wanted to have that conversation before she said I do. And I don't know if they get married or not. That episode has not been released yet. But she was just wanted to make sure that if she was put in a position where her child might have a disability, she would want to abort it and then try again. Yeah. And I think she brought up like cases of rape or incest and how he felt about that. And so her whole thing was like knowing like where her man stands on abortion.
Yeah.
After, they're already.
And so where did he end up falling after?
Yeah, they're trying to paint him like some kind of villain for not supporting her choices.
Online, he's definitely painted as a villain. Like who is this guy? Like, she can do way better. She's obviously educated and all this stuff, and he's not. And you could tell that he he didn't have like a lot of good talking points. They might not have showed that. You don't know how it's edited. But he just seemed very uncomfortable at the thought of aborting their child if it had a disability.
Wow. Well, when I read an article about it, I don't watch the show, but I read an article on the Washington Examiner all about that conversation and how basically the article is really helpful. It talks about how there's a class of men in abortion politics that they call the movable middle men. And he falls right in there. He was talking about how he thinks abortion is wrong, but then when his feet are pressed to the fire, like, well, okay, maybe in cases of rape and incest, okay, maybe if the mother's really, really poor, but like, you should never use it as birth control. You should never use it as a way to cover a stupid mistake that you could have prevented, or like, you basically don't use it as your escape route.
So they're not very grounded in why they believe abortion is wrong. And that's where we get back to policy conversations and even candidates who come up and say, oh, well, I'm pro-life. Well, okay, you got to explore it. If you are against abortion, why are you against abortion? Are you against abortion because that's an unborn child, a baby, and that status as a human being does not change based on situational context? Like that's where people we have, as humans, we have this guttural reaction where, yes, we are against abortion. Like that's our first check in our spirit. But if you don't understand why, you're not going to be able to defend it, and you defend your stance, and then you're going to be swayed in one way or the other. And so it's important, for listeners to, just like in cases of if the baby might have a disability, those diagnoses are incredibly wrong, high levels of inaccuracy. Okay. And so first, just you can't trust that. And second, again, that goes back to, would you kill a human being outside of the womb because they have a disability?
Because of the same disability, right? Yeah.
The answer to that is no. There's nothing different between a 2-year-old who has a disability versus a 6-month-old in someone's womb. It's just, where are they at? And then the cases of rape and incest as well. I mean, there is no difference between a baby in you and a baby in me.
Right.
The way they got there.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was fascinating to hear about that, like, movable middleman, and basically, like, the sense of compassion that we all innately have can be hijacked and misguided. And that's where I think, like, the woman and other people in the show were telling him, like, well, what about this case? What about this case? And then it's like, well, I'm feeling pulled in all these directions, but somebody can help you learn all the philosophy behind this and help you learn to think, basically. Learn to stand your ground. This reminds me of Seth Dillon's clip on Joe Rogan's show the other day. The way he stood his ground on the topic of abortion is so neatly, so confidently. He didn't be like, well, what about this? What about that? He's like, well, it's wrong for these reasons, X, Y, Z. It's just clear as day. And then Joe Rogan was like, what about this? What about this? And Seth was like, none of those answers change the reality of why abortion is wrong. We can talk about those things, but it doesn't change. And I was like, that's so, I love how really confident he was. He was really, really good.
Yeah, we need more men like that.
Yes.
We need more men to confidently stand their ground and not be worried, like not being worried about being canceled. I mean, that guy on Love is Blind is definitely canceled. From what maybe he changes his mind, maybe they get married. I don't know.
Maybe the Daily Wire will recruit him.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing, though.
There's a whole nother world out there. Like,
yeah. I would have loved to see him, though, stand his ground and be like, it is never okay to kill an innocent life. It is never okay, like, no matter what. And to see that on TV would have been incredible. But you could tell that he was very nervous to be like, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, they have to make it an emotional case, because the logical part of your brain says, no, this is wrong. But if you understand kind of neurology a bit, like, the emotional part of your brain is sort of the elephant, and the logical part of your brain is the zookeeper. And if you get the elephant mad enough, it doesn't matter what the zookeeper wants to do anymore. Right. They lose all control. And as long as you can kind of keep the elephant contained and happy, everything's chill. And so they have to play that emotional card, because you'll bypass your logic and reason if they can get you worked up enough.
Yeah.
And that's the game they're playing with all this Anne Hathaway, Love is Blind, citing all the crazy cases and exceptions. And what about this? And what about that? And they want to make you feel guilty about it. But logically, it is still a child dies here. Yeah. So there's no excuses.
Yeah. And they also act like men aren't affected. And that's what really makes me upset is the fact that as if a man wouldn't be affected, that, you know, not only does a child have a disability, but that you are definitely going to abort the child if they do. Like, that's the man's child too. Like, you know, it made me sad to think that the man would just be totally disregarded. It's like only what the woman is wanting to do. And it's just, that's so sad to me. Like, that's the dad, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's just supposed to stand there like this silent, you know, entity who's just like, do whatever you want. Like,
that's the standard now.
Yeah, like this wussy man who has no right to an opinion. Like, that's the ideal feminist man. Yeah. Oh, so cringe.
When in reality, he should have been like a dream guy. Like, he's the guy that doesn't want to make her have an abortion. Like, that's good.
Yeah, he said, I would make it work. I would support you. I would, you know, we'd figure it out. Things like that.
Our world is upside down. That makes no sense to me.
Yes, it is. And we're going to talk about, it is election day. So we're going to talk about politics a little bit here and how upside down the world is. But we have to take a quick break. Before we do, I want to acknowledge the guy sitting behind the camera right now, Peter Pinedo. This is his last day, and we will miss him. He is off to work at EWTN in their journalism department. We will miss you, buddy. Thanks for all of the work you put in this program. Now, on to our break. Thank you before I get emotional.
Save the date for Boots on the Ground. It's an awesome pro-life conference coming up January 28th and 29th. Come to Austin, Texas with us to march to the Capitol, to celebrate the end of Roe v. Wade, to commemorate Roe v. Wade, and to learn from expert pro-life speakers on how to keep Texas pro-life forever. Come to Austin with us and hear from Ryan Baumberger, our keynote speaker who shares his personal story, and so much more. Book your tickets today, bootsonthegroundtx.com. See you in January.
Without warning, you or your loved one could end up in the emergency room where every second counts and your medical wishes matter more than ever. However, if your loved one doesn't have the right medical documents on hand, they may not be able to make decisions for you in a crisis. My Life Angels solves all of this by walking you through step by step in creating these important medical documents and storing them online securely for you and your family to access at any time. The service is only $7 a month, but use the link in our description for 20% off your initial subscription period. Don't let strangers make life and death decisions for you. Get the My Life Angels app today.
Welcome back, friends. Also, hey, congratulations, Astros. Make America mad again. Sorry. I'm a Houston boy. I'm a lifetime Houston boy. I love my Astros even when they sucked. So it's great now that they don't. Okay, we have other important content to talk about. It is election day. So before you go vote, we've got some stuff you may want to see. So some of us have seen this Beto TikTok. I think it's one of his volunteers or whatever. Posted this with him. And we'll just show it to those who haven't seen it yet, real quick.
For a yellow bone, long hair star, thick in the hips, come get in my car.
I know. Well, like, I don't want to even look at that anymore.
All right, so he looks like a...
Hang on. Let me stop this nonsense. God.
I don't know whether to laugh or to scream.
I'm like shivering a little.
You just threw up in your mouth a little? Yeah.
Okay, I did cringe when I watched it last week. Because he looks like a creepy old man who's trying to hit on college girls at a bar.
Well, he knows that's a winning vibe for Biden, so he's just gonna do the same
for
thing.
Joe, so your face
He's in
right
good
now.
company.
Bailey,
I
okay?
just can't believe that they were like, we're gonna post this on TikTok and we're gonna show it to people.
It's so hip and cool. Let's post it.
So her content, if you go to her account and if you find this thing, I'm sorry that you had to watch that. And we're going to show it too. So I'm sorry you had to watch that. But if you look at her account, she's like half his age, less than half his age. She's like 23 if you go a half dozen videos back, it's like her and her 3-year-old, like talking about, when I was pregnant at 18 and here's I'm 20 and you're 2, whatever, whatever the age was.
How the tables
pictures
turn.
Pictures of her and her little girl. I was like, okay, so you're a teenage pregnancy and
you chose life. That's great.
You chose life, but now you're arguing in favor of abortion. What happened here?
Yeah.
Like that's so I'm always like, okay, what's the backstory? And I'm just like, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened?
Maybe it just fell in. It's so weird. I know so many pro-choice women who have been in similar stories. It's like they either had a child out of wedlock or earlier than they intended or something like that. And they're so happy that they have this kid. And yet they're like staunchly pro-choice. Yeah. And like, I wouldn't want the same thing for my daughter. I'm like, I don't understand how to compute that. Like, I completely understand how doing things in the right order is preferred. But it's like Felix culpa, right? Like we wouldn't have wished for this to happen, but now that it's happened, we're so glad you're here. Like, and instead, if her daughter were to get pregnant at 18, she would prefer her to have an abortion. She would prefer not to have her grandchild and help her daughter survive in the same way that she did so well, so beautifully. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, well, let's back up to the creepy old man in this video.
Yeah, okay.
I have to be careful saying old man. He's not that much older than me. Robert Francis. What was that? Like,
he can't dance.
As a white male, you have embarrassed the race of white men. I know we can't dance anyway, but seriously. Like, what was that?
They're just so desperately trying to reach, like, the, Generation Z, younger millennials, and it's just so cringy to watch. Like,
so bad.
My little sister has gotten so many phone calls from the Democratic Party. Like, he went to ACL. Beto went to ACL, and Harry Styles gave him a shout out from on stage. Like, but like, I don't know why people don't see through this. Like, they're trying to use certain subjects to get people to vote for them, and like they're using you.
Yeah,
and they're very blatantly going for younger people.
Yeah,
like videos like that. That's just so cringy.
Yeah, the term youngins is useful idiots. That's what they think you are.
Yeah.
They think you're a useful idiot.
Yeah.
Well, it's turning to state politics.
Yes.
We have some younger folks running for office that our team's really excited about. That is actually will be gains, pro-life gains in the Texas legislature. So first, in the Williamson County area, which is the Round Rock area, we've got Caroline Harris. Now, Caroline Harris is running. This is a newly drawn. It's a district that used to be blue, but during redistricting, it is drawn to favor to draw out kind of a very vocal Democrat and instead turn it to a Republican district. But Caroline Harris is one of those people. She worked in the legislature for State Senator Brian Hughes for the past 10 years, right? And so you always gauge people by elected officials, employers, by who they employ. And we have been Texas Rights Life and Caroline Harris. She is a pro-life fighter behind the scenes. Like, I mean, especially on patients' rights and the budget to help pregnant and parenting families. And she's just the real deal. And so our team will be out there, and we're looking forward to Caroline. She had a primary and now is a Republican nominee. And we're just looking forward to what that holds next week. It's pretty close. So, because it's a
close race.
Yeah, it's a marginally Republican district now. It should be. So, those are, if you're in Williamson County, Round Rock, go take a couple friends to go vote for Caroline Harris for state rep. One of the second race that we're watching and really hopeful for is actually in the South Texas area. So, the abortion issue has been motivating voters to leave the Democrat Party in South Texas and join the Republican Party because that, not killing children is more in line with
their
those
conservative
voters.
values.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the Democrat Party is just becoming more and more vocal of abortion on demand at all costs. And people are just kind of like, no, thank you. But there's a Texas State Senate race there that used to be in Democrat control, but it really is because of this shifting. We have a good chance of picking it up as a Republican seat, which is good on patients' rights and is good on the hard cases for abortion as well. But that's Adam Hinojosa. He's the Republican nominee, and his opponent. It's an open seat. That senator has retired. That's held that seat for decades. But the new Democrat nominee is endorsed by Planned Parenthood. So they are, very wanting to hang on for multiple reasons to this seat. So if you're in South Texas, go vote for Adam Hinojosa.
Nice.
Cool. You know, you could wonder what is Planned Parenthood doing endorsing candidates. I thought they were done in Texas, right? But we're one session away from undoing all the good we've done.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Take this seriously.
I mean, that's the part of instead of playing, we've been on the offense, and now we're going to be playing defense. And it's very important for folks to remember that just because Roe's overturned, because we've got the Trigger Law and the Heartbeat Act, all of those can be undone simply by a new majority in either chamber of the legislature.
One session.
Okay, right. Or a weak majority, a majority made up of weak-kneed people. So we constantly have to be making sure that we're sending the right people to the Texas legislature, or all of this work will be undone and babies will continue to be killed in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And there's also sanctuary cities as well?
Absolutely. So we've got sanctuary cities for the unborn ordinances that are being that are on ballots in some cities in Texas. So those cities right now for Tuesday: Abilene, Athens, Plainview, and San Angelo, all across the state. Some of these ordinances are, sometimes cities can pass these ordinances just through their city council. Sometimes it requires a petition and a placement on the ballot, and that's the case with these four. Or it is overriding the city council. So in some cases, the city council has said no, and citizens have said, okay, well, we're going to go route B, and we've assembled a petition with the registered number of voters that we need, and now it's on the ballot, and we're going to get to decide. The one that needs the most help right now is Abilene. So if you have any friends or family out in Abilene, call them, tell them, make sure that they get out to vote.
That's so cool. I remember when San Angelo used to have an abortion clinic, and I've been out there before with some of the college kids years ago, and it has since closed down. And so now the fact that they're doing the sanctuary city for the unborn in San Angelo means that if it passes, they will never be allowed to vote. Or they will never be allowed to build a Planned Parenthood there again, which is amazing. Like that is a dramatic change for good.
Yep.
Awesome.
I love it.
Yep. If you haven't voted yet, it's election day. Go vote. You've got a couple hours left. I'm not sure exactly what time this is dropping, but you should have some time still.
Until
go
7
vote.
p.m.
Call your friends. Get them to go vote. Because if you don't vote your values, somebody else will vote against your values. We're always one session away from undoing all the good we've done. So we can't just act like, well, it's done, guys. No, it's not done. It must be protected. And we still have patients' rights work to do too.
Absolutely.
So, and we have to fight for the budget pregnancy centers.
Yeah.
Doggone it. We have to go fight for the pregnancy centers funding every year. Every other year. So much to do still. So, go vote. Do your civic duty. Hey, if you have appreciated what we're doing here, if you've learned something, if you've enjoyed this, would you consider supporting what we're doing here with a donation? Links below. Thank you guys for watching today. We appreciate you so much. Like, share, talk to your friends. Again, if you don't rep your values, somebody else will rep against them. Get out there, go vote. We will see you next week.